I think people, and not just women, tend to drink far less water than they should. Our body has something called a thirst mechanism, which means that it'll let you know when you're thirsty. You're like, oh, I'm feeling thirsty. However, if you don't pay attention to it, it shuts off. And that can be very dangerous because you can be dehydrated without knowing it because you don't think you're thirsty. I've had people tell me, oh, I don't drink a lot of water. I'm just never thirsty. That's not a good thing because you're not paying attention to what your body's telling you. And if you're a woman that's experiencing hot flashes, water is so important because water regulates body temperature. So if you're feeling really hot, you want to drink more water just to cool yourself down.
Menopause has long been shrouded in secrecy, leaving many clueless, ashamed, and embarrassed to seek and extend support for one of the most natural transitions and rite of passage. Well, the spirit and mood have changed. People are surrendering to curiosity, knowledge, and empowerment. In this podcast, I'll share my own experiences and point of view, peek into the lifestyle and self-care practices of people experiencing menopause, and tap experts for their take on the pausal phase. This is for you if you are one of the millions of people in the menopausal phase or want to support them. I'm Dixie Lincoln Nichols, health and well-being educator and wellness founder. This is the Pause Pod.
Laura has been in practice as a certified nutritionist and health coach for 15 years. She is passionate about changing the conversation around menopause and taking it from anxiety to empowerment. She believes every woman's experience with menopause is unique and that her uniqueness needs to be honored. A woman's food choices are always important, but are especially important during menopause because they have an impact on menopause symptoms. She also believes menopause and nutrition are a natural fit. Hello, Laura. How are you? Thank you so much for saying yes to being on the Pause Pod to share your knowledge and expertise in perimenopause, pregnancy, and postmenopause. It is a delight to have you.
Thank you. I'm great, Dixie. So nice to be here.
What led to your love for food? Being a curious cook and a nutritionist, tell us more about your life's journey and what led to those loves.
Well, I grew up on meat and potatoes. My mother was a cook. She was much more of a baker than a cook. And, we were living sort of pre-processed food. So the food was good, but it was just, meat and potatoes. And in my early 20s, I moved to Italy for about 5 years. And that's when it all started because that is the land of food. Not only is the food in Italy really delicious, but there's a whole culture around food. Food needed to look good, it needed to smell good, it needed to taste good. So it was a whole different experience for me. Actually, I frequently say to people that I learned to love salad in Italy, not pasta, but salad, because the greens were just so great. So that basically started me on my food journey. And I do love to cook, and I love to try new recipes, new foods, new cuisines. And when I came back to the States, I just, started cooking more. And then I eventually I was working as a massage therapist. I worked with women. I did a lot of prenatal massage, and a lot of my clients would ask me about food. It's like, Laura, well, what do you think I should eat? When it was this and that, and I had answers, but I felt I needed to have something to really substantiate my answers. So I went back to school and I studied nutrition, and I really wanted to study it from a nutrition standpoint, not from a coaching standpoint. So I really wanted the facts. And I went to school, I got my certificate, and I felt that now I was really able to actually answer people and make some judgment calls that were correct for them. So basically, that's how it came about. And then I sort of switched my career, and I'm no longer doing massage, and I'm focusing exclusively on nutrition.
I especially love where you said eating is one of life's pleasures. I love that and I totally agree with it. Yet so many people find it difficult to enjoy food. And eating food becomes unpleasant or leads to unpleasant experiences. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
Well, I agree with you 100%. I think I think there's a lot of fear around food. And I think that has to do with marketing. People tend to tune more into marketing than they do into nutrition. One of my pet peeves, if you will, is when I go to a supermarket and I'm looking at something totally innocuous, benign, like potato chips. And on the package, it says no cholesterol. Well, potato chips never had cholesterol. It's a marketing ploy because we're all like, oh, cholesterol, bad, bad. And I think it's very important to not label foods good or bad. Our food choices can be good or bad, but not the food themselves. And I think that food is just has, I don't know, sometimes comes from a very weird place. For example, all the fat free food. Oh, fat is bad. Fat is bad. Fat is not bad. Types of fats can be bad. However, if you're like, oh, I'm only going to eat fat free food because fat is bad, well, guess what? Now you're eating a lot of sugar because when manufacturers take out fat, they replace it with sugar, which is much
Mm,
worse.
mm.
So there is definitely a fear of food, and it really contributes to a lot of people's food choices, what they eat and what they won't eat. And I think that that really needs to be addressed, changed. And, I try to do that when I'm working with clients on a one-on-one. We really talk about, well, how do you really feel about food? Are you enjoying what you're eating? Because food is to be enjoyed. I mean, it's not just something that nourishes us, it also creates community. It's something we use to celebrate. It's much more than just something to eat to make us, live longer.
I love the community aspect and how food plays a role in that. And I'll come to that later on. But I want to now shift a little bit to your menopausal experience, what it was like for you. Take us through your journey and how you ended up on this other side, teaching people about how to utilize food to enhance and to optimize their menopausal experience.
I know that there are other people who've had my experience, but my experience with menopause was a little bit different because in my early 30s, I had a hysterectomy. I had my uterus removed, but I still had my ovaries. That meant that I would go through menopause. However, I didn't have the normal telltale sign of, oops, my period isn't coming or my period is irregular. And so menopause was not even on my radar. I mean, I just was like, whatever. And at that time, people were not talking about menopause. Women didn't talk about it. Your doctors didn't. Nobody talked about it. And so I think the most that I would hear is someone would say, oh, hot flashes. And that's about it. That was how menopause was basically defined. I think it was just the time people really didn't talk about it, but also I was in my early 30s, so nobody was expecting me to go through menopause for another 10 years at least. So why would they talk about it? I don't know. But it was very interesting. So I was about in my early 40s and I started feeling very anxious. I started getting heart palpitations and I had no idea what was going on. I was like, this is so weird. I would go into an elevator and the door would close and I would panic. So I thought, this isn't right. But I didn't talk to my doctor because why would I? I talked to my best friend and she said, go see an acupuncturist. I've got a really good acupuncturist for you. So that's what I did. I called this acupuncturist and I said, oh my God, I'm feeling really anxious. I don't know what's going on. And she said, sounds like menopause. And I thought, what? And she goes, she said, yes. She said, but I can help you. And so I had like 3 treatments with her and I was fine because I needed to travel. I had a trip planned to go to Santa Fe and I was really nervous about getting on a plane because I thought, suppose I have a panic attack, suppose I have this. And I didn't. I was fine. And so I still didn't really know about menopause because she had mentioned that that's probably what was going on, but okay, fine. we took care of it. That's it. And, and then I had other things that were happening, which I have to say, I didn't even relate to menopause until years later. I mean, I eventually talked to my gynecologist, and I had a very good gynecologist, and she said, and I said to her, "Do you think I might be going through menopause? Because I can't really tell. I mean, I don't get my period anyway." And she said, "Well, let's take a blood test and we'll check your estrogen levels," which she did. And she said, "Yeah, they're very low. You definitely are going through menopause." And that's how I found out about it. Fast forward, I realized that people are starting to talk about it. And for me, it's really important that women have this conversation because I didn't have this conversation. And I think my life could have been a lot easier. You know, information is power. And to know what was going on and what's going on in your own body is really, really important. I can say that now, now that I'm in the menopause world, now that I do a lot of research around menopause, I can look back and go, oh, wow, that happened. Oh, urge incontinence. I just thought it was because I was drinking lemonade. What did I know? And so there are just all these little things that I was like, oh, right, that was probably a sign of menopause. So that was my journey. And now I'm here just trying to explain that every woman's menopause experience is unique. Some women will have an experience like mine. Some will have an experience that's totally different. Some women will have their periods and one day it just stops and that's the end of it. And some women will feel like they got hit by a Mack truck.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Even though the experience is unique, experiencing it within a community is much more beneficial than experiencing it in a silo. Imagine having had no one to turn to, not your best friend, not a good gynecologist, how much more difficult it would have been, right? So I love that you talk about community and how important the community is and how important food is to creating community within these experiences. Yeah. So, how did you utilize food to support you during that phase once you realized that you were indeed experiencing the menopausal passage?
I probably didn't use food at that point. I didn't know enough to do that. I think that there are certain foods that definitely exacerbate menopause symptoms. With the anxiety, I probably now, knowing what I know now, would probably said, oh, you need to cut down on any caffeine or sugar because that just exacerbates it. But not knowing that, you just don't know.
Right. Okay. So now that you know, because you are full of information and resources and knowledge, because you went back to school and this has been your life's work for 15 years, what are some of the ways in which people can utilize nutrition, healthy eating habits to support them during menopause? Because so much is changing, so much is going on, and
Right.
so many people continue to eat the same because they just don't know that changes within their nutrition can optimize their health. What would you say some things are that they can do?
I think that good food choices are vitally important when it comes to managing menopause symptoms. I think that what you choose to eat probably would depend on what your symptoms are. However, I think that having I'm first of all, I want to preface this by saying I don't believe in diets. I think that diets are something that work on the short term, but we want something that's sustainable. I definitely recommend the Mediterranean diet, not because it's a diet, but because it's a way of eating.
Mhm.
And it incorporates a lot of lean meats, fish, which are really healthy proteins. And at this time in a woman's life, she really needs protein because when we go through menopause and we start aging, our muscle mass decreases. And from school, you remember that protein is the building blocks of life.
Yep.
So we need our proteins. And then you also need leafy greens and vegetables. They all have, and all of the antioxidants. There's just so many foods that in that kind of way of eating is really supportive of menopause and any symptoms you might have. Also, the other thing, I mean, I said something earlier about fats. It's important to have healthy fats in your diet. They're very good, especially if somebody is having brain fog. Healthy fats support your brain. And by healthy fats, I'm talking about olive oil, salmon, avocado, nuts and seeds. Those are all really healthy foods that we need to eat. We don't need a lot of it, but we need that. And when you start on a diet that cuts out fats, then you're really doing yourself harm. It's not supporting your health or helping any of your menopause symptoms. So I definitely think that you want to start with like a Mediterranean way of eating. You want to make sure that you're drinking lots of water. I think women, people, and not just women, tend to drink far less water than they should. Our body has something called a thirst mechanism, which means that it'll let you know when you're thirsty. You're like, oh, I'm feeling thirsty. However, if you don't pay attention to it, it shuts off. And that can be very dangerous because you can be dehydrated without knowing it because you don't think you're thirsty. I've had people tell me, oh, I don't drink a lot of water. I'm just never thirsty. That's not a good thing because you're not paying attention to what your body's telling you. And if you're a woman that's experiencing hot flashes, water is so important because water regulates body temperature. So if you're feeling really hot, you want to drink more water just to cool yourself down. So there are definitely foods that really are worth incorporating into your diet.
Wow, something as simple as water. I mean, it's not simple. It's our bodies need water. Most of our bodies is made up of water.
Mhm.
And I can totally relate because I ran into that trap of not feeling thirsty and was dehydrated and
Mhm.
later learned that the decline in estrogen and, of course,
Right.
progesterone, we don't feel as thirsty and our water reservoirs are not as high as it used to be. So then we end up dehydrated. So I actually ended up in the emergency room and had to be given
An IV.
fluids because of that. And of course, I learned my lesson since then. I was working out and pretty busy, moving, active, and was not drinking nearly as much water because I thought I'm drinking smoothies and I'm drinking green
Yeah.
juices and I can drink water, but I don't have to drink that much. Not. So I learned my lesson. So thank you for that.
Yeah, definitely. Water is just so important. And yes, we can get water from other sources, like, fruits and vegetables have a lot of water. In the
Right.
summer, it's always interesting because the foods that we eat in the summer have a higher water content because
Right.
that's the time of the year when we need more water. But definitely, just drinking more water is really, really helpful.
Yeah, and it's interesting how nature supports us, right? That
Hmm.
summer, when our bodies tend to be more prone to dehydration, there are more fruits and vegetables
Right.
available for us to tend to that. And
Yeah.
then, of course, the warming foods in the winter. So, what are some specific foods that you think that we should utilize to enhance? I mean, I love the fact that you said hot flashes require water, but there are specific foods, I'm sure, that can help support some menopausal symptoms. What are some of those that you can recommend?
Well, hot flashes is such a big symptom for a lot of women. Sleeplessness is another one.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, brain fog, and
Hmm.
for the brain fog, most of that is eating good quality oils, incorporating fats in your diet that are good quality fats. And for the hot flashes, I would say definitely water, but also think about how much caffeine you're drinking. Think about how much sugar is in your diet. Make sure that those are tapped down. And also, sleep deprivation is another big thing where we women can't sleep. Now,
Yeah.
sometimes you're during menopause, your sleep is interrupted because you're having hot flashes and night sweats, which wake you up. But on the other hand, so they sort of go hand in hand, the hot flashes and the night sweats. So definitely you want to make sure you're not eating spicy foods, all those foods that heat you up. You're
Yeah.
heating up from the inside. I mean, I don't know if you felt this, but I know sometimes when I'm drinking a hot cup of tea, all of a sudden I feel very, very warm. Well, if you're having hot flash, you don't want to feel very, very warm, make
Been
sure that
there.
those are, yeah, you want to keep away from that. When I'm looking at foods at a diet plan for someone who is going through menopause, I look very specifically at their symptoms. I always make sure that they're eating enough protein and also calcium. So not everyone is going to be drinking a lot of milk. I, for one, do not drink milk. I'm lactose sensitive and I won't drink it.
Right.
However, leafy greens have a lot of calcium in them. In fact, kale has more calcium than milk.
Yeah.
And so that's a good food to be incorporating. When I'm working with someone, whenever you talk about menopause symptoms, and diet, the diet really has to reflect what this person's food choices are. Is this person a vegetarian? Is this person a pescatarian? Is this person an omnivore? Those will all get put into the mix of what foods would be recommended. Because I can say eating sardines with the bones is great, but if you're a vegetarian, you're never going to eat that. So what else is there? And protein is really important. The quality of protein is also very important. So, protein that comes from animal products is probably the best quality. However, if you're not going to eat that, then you have to make sure that grains and pulses that you eat, like quinoa has a lot of protein, that you eat enough of it. You probably will have to eat more than you think to make up for the quality.
Got it. What I'm hearing you just said was a variety of different types of foods to support different parts of the body, specifically things like brain health, bone health, cardiovascular health. So, talk specifically about heart health and how diet can support healthy heart.
Okay, a healthy heart is really, really important. I think that 1 out of 3 women die of heart attacks. I mean,
Hmm.
more than men.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's really, really important to keep our hearts healthy. I mean, when we talk about menopause, we talk about nutrition and diet, and then the other half of that is always exercise. You have to have
Right.
both of them, and you need that. That's also very good for your heart. Heart healthy fats are good. You don't want to eat a lot of saturated fats. Saturated fats are bad for your heart. Now, I think that you want to do everything in moderation, right?
Mhm.
So you never want to go like, this is a bad food, I'm not going to eat this. This is a good food. If you moderate, you will end up being a lot better off. I like to talk about the 80/20 rule. I think 80% is perfect.
Me
I
too.
don't believe in 100% being perfect because it's not sustainable. I think
Yeah.
people make themselves crazy when they do that. It's sort of like you're trying to reach a goal that's just not going to work.
Right.
Cut yourself some slack, eat really healthy 80% of the time, and then, yeah, you have a birthday party, you have an
Yeah.
office party, you have an anniversary, you want to celebrate, you're going to have a piece of cake, fine. You're going to have it, you're going to enjoy it, it's going to taste really good, and then you're not going to do it again. But you're not going to eat something and say, oh, I'm so guilty. Oh, I had that. It was a guilty pleasure. That just doesn't work. But as far as heart health, I think that you want to eat a variety of foods. And I think variety is always the key.
Mhm.
And I know that foods work in conjunction with each other. You can't just have one food. If you only eat one food, it's not going to do you any good because, for example, calcium and magnesium, they go together. One supports the other. You can't just have calcium. You might think, oh, bone health, I need to have calcium, and you're just going to load yourself with calcium. You can't do that. You need to have a variety of foods. With heart health, it's the same thing. It's more like you want to have the proteins, you want to have antioxidants, right? So the antioxidants are all of those fruits and vegetables in all the different colors, which is why we always say, you know, don't worry about specific vitamins and nutrients. Make sure that your plate is very colorful because as long as
Mm.
your plate is colorful, you're going to get all of that. So I think that it's really, really important to eat well and then exercise for your heart health. Good fats are a big part of it.
How do you address setbacks? Because you talked about the 80/20 rule, which of course is going to help. But tell us of some other ways that people can alleviate setbacks or plateaus specifically speaking with your clients and experiences that you've had with them, especially as it pertains to menopausal changes. Because so many people, when they are in menopause, I hear this all the time. I'm not feeling like myself. I'm putting on weight. I haven't done anything different. Talk to us about how you
Okay, so
approach that.
that that is definitely a thing. That definitely
A
happens.
thing, yeah.
But it's sort of like I think that our bodies change all the time.
Right.
When we go
Right.
from being a child to going into puberty, our bodies change. When we go through pregnancy, our body changes. As we get age, our bodies change. Our bodies are always changing. Now, people say, I've got this extra weight around my middle. What do I do? And how do I measure that? You might say, well, I've got weight gain, and how do I measure that? And you can say, well, buy yourself a scale, go on the scale every week at the same time. I don't believe that. I think that when you're going through this menopause journey, my advice to my clients is always be mindful. If you are doing something and it's not working, let's figure out why. I don't really think you're going to have a plateau. You have to understand things are changing. So let's say that you were gaining weight and your measure was to step on the scale. Okay. I don't think you should do that, but let's say that that's what you're going to do. So then you work with me and I say, you need to eat more frequently, you need to do this, you need to do that. And you step on the scale and you've actually gained weight. Oh, terrible. But it's not, because if you put on your clothes, wow, your clothes fit differently. They fit better. Your friends are saying, wow, you look better. But your scale is saying, whoa, you've gained weight. The difference is muscle weighs more than fat. So you're lost that fat, but you've been working out and eating well, so you now have muscle, and so you're going to gain more. So I don't think that these natural ways, normal ways that we normally measure things, really work that well. I think that this is a good time for you to be, for a woman when she's going through menopause, to really be mindful of her body and what she's doing. So a lot of times, the tool that I like best is a journal. This is a journey. This doesn't go from one day to the next and it's done. This can be over a 10-year period of time. Do you plateau? I don't know. Maybe it's just part of the journey. And if you do have a goal, let's say your goal is only to get rid of your hot flashes, right? So we work out a way of you to eat, foods that you incorporate, more water, less this, and you your hot flashes diminish. Well, it's because they diminish. I'm not giving you a measurement on how much. Oh, you're only feeling 50% of what you felt before, but eventually they should taper down. If they're not, then what we do is we recalibrate your treatment, what you're eating. Let's look at that. And I think that goes for any goal that you yourself are setting for your menopause journey has to be measured by you. And then someone like me is just there to make adjustments.
I certainly love the idea of reframing that idea of plateau by being mindful, because it just might be that it is your body that's changing. And
Hmm.
you have to be mindful enough to recognize the sensations or the physical changes or the emotional
Right.
changes that are happening that would allow you to reset appropriately, as opposed to saying, okay, I am stuck and I can't move because I've plateaued.
Right. I don't really think the plateau really works when you're
Mm,
talking about menopause,
interesting.
because it's a journey and symptoms will change, they ebb and flow,
Yeah.
but they don't really plateau unless, of course, you're not doing anything, and
Right.
then you're just where you started. You're not
Right.
moving forward at all, and your symptoms are the same, and they'll just do what they do naturally.
Right. Yeah, because it is about the change, like you said, the constant change that's happening. And the menopausal change in itself has so many changes. I mean, I went through perimenopause for 12 years, and a series of changes occurred during that time. And now that I'm in postmenopause, a series of
Right.
other changes are happening. And I have to be continually present with each of those changes in order to activate action or resources and lessons and, so that
Right.
I can move forward as healthily as I can.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it really, I think women need to understand it's a journey. It's sort of, I think we get stuck in our 20s where, you gain a couple of pounds, you're like, okay, I'm not going to eat for 2 days and it'll go away. And it
And it go
does.
away. But these are changes that have to be consistent. You
Right.
can't say, I'm going to abstain from food for 2 days or 2 weeks, and then your body springs back to what it was. And it's like, oh, kumbaya. It's like, no, you have to change the way that you do things moving forward, whatever that is, to maintain a
Whatever that is.
healthy as possible body for you. And whatever healthy is for you is what you're going to have
Yeah.
to be consistent with. Yeah.
It's true.
Okay.
And I think one of the other things, especially when it comes to weight gain, what is really hard for a lot of women, I know I'm sure that 99% of my clients balk when I say this. And it's like, okay, you are now going to have to eat more frequently. And they're like, what? More food? I'm like, no, I didn't say that. I said you need to eat more frequently because, with the drop in estrogen, you have insulin resistance that comes into play. And so it's almost like being diabetic, where you need to keep your sugar levels even. And the only way you can do that is by eating frequently. So it's like breakfast snack, dinner, lunch snack, dinner snack. Now, you can eat the same amount of food. You can even eat a little less food, but you have to eat more frequently. And I think that I love it when I tell clients this because they're always giving me pushback. And then about 3 weeks later, they'll sheepishly say, well, I did lose weight.
Ta-da! I am
It
so
works
with you on that one because that for me was the magic pill. Eating more regularly.
more
I don't get a
regularly.
lot of hot flashes anymore. I'm in
Mhm.
postmenopause. I'm 1 year in, actually, I'm 2 years into not having had a period. And
Right.
so I discovered earlier this year that eating 6 times a day was what it took. And so I was like, oh my God, it's because of my blood glucose levels.
Yeah,
And since then, it's been
absolutely.
magic. And you're so right. It's not about eating more food,
More.
it's just about eating more times per day. So
Yeah.
it's breakfast, snack, lunch,
Lunch,
snack,
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 dinner, snack.
dinner, and that's
Yep.
it. Yeah, I think if you're out there listening, try this. Laura just told you it works, and her clients come back, and I can attest that it actually works. Try
It does
eating more during the
frequently.
day, frequently, up to 6 times a day, maybe five, whatever works for you, but more frequent
Oh,
meals.
start, if you're somebody that's like, oh no, I can't do this, start with a little bit less. And
Right.
then, maybe add another snack in there at some point. And what we're saying is, a snack can be like 4 almonds. It's not
Yeah.
a lot of food. It's just
Yeah.
something,
Yeah. Exactly.
something to keep your sugar
Exactly.
levels
I'm
even.
staring at my almond trail mix right now as we speak. That's my
It's
snack.
waiting for you. It's
It's
waiting
waiting
for
for
you.
me. Okay, so you support women who are pregnant, people who are experiencing perimenopause, postmenopause, and there's a common thread there. What is
It's
the
so it's
commonality between pregnancy and menopause? And here's
I
why
know.
I love that so much that you make that connection, because I have friends who are in their 40s who are still trying to get pregnant and want to get pregnant and are working on getting pregnant. And they ask me all the time, oh my God, can I be in perimenopause and be pregnant at the same time? So take it away.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. It's very interesting, and I think it says a lot about where we are right now in 2023. Um, Women can be in perimenopause and pregnant at the same time, and it's quite a hormonal cocktail because both pregnancy and menopause are controlled by hormones, right? So and there are a lot of similarities. For example, weight gain. Okay, when you're pregnant, of course, you're going to gain weight. You are, but hot flashes. Women who are in menopause get hot flashes, but women who are pregnant are always hot. There's a raise in body temperature in both cases. Mood changes, another one. Fatigue, another one. These are all like, and I say to a lot of my women in menopause, I guess, do you feel like you're pregnant again? You're getting a lot of the same symptoms. It's the
Yes.
same thing, right? So it's definitely very, very much the same. And, we are driven by, as women, we are driven by hormones. They kick in when we go through puberty, getting us ready to get pregnant. And then we get pregnant or not. And these hormones will rise and fall until we get into menopause when they decrease. But it's just this whole cycle of hormones that are happening.
Right, right. That's so important because I think so many women who are in their 40s get scared.
Yeah.
They worry that being in perimenopause means that they can't have children, or being in perimenopause and pregnant will exacerbate their unpleasant feelings. What would you say to
Well,
people who are
I
worried about
I
that?
mean, every woman's an individual, and as far as pregnancy, every pregnancy is different. I mean, some women will get pregnant and just breathe through it. The first baby, the second baby, it's like, oh my God, what happened here? You just don't know. I think what's happened though, which is interesting, is that as women have gone into the workforce and are waiting longer to get pregnant, we've now bumped into this being pregnant and being perimenopause at the same time. When women used to have babies and when they were 18, 20, it wasn't even, a discussion. It would have been so odd for that to happen. It's just where we are now and how we've, evolved in our careers and how we've decided to take charge of our own lives and put off
Mm.
having children until later.
Hmm.
Even I think until like in the 50s, no one would have ever had gone through menopause and pregnancy at the same time.
Right,
And the
right.
thing with perimenopause, okay, perimenopause is a time when it's a transition time. And
Right.
it's the time when your ovaries are starting to shut down. The estrogen is starting to decrease. And the other thing is, as you're going through perimenopause and your hormones, your estrogen is decreasing, until it has actually decreased, until you are in menopause, until you have had that 1 year of no period, you can still get pregnant.
Yes, yes.
So, a lot of women will say, oh, I'm in perimenopause, my periods are regular. I know that's it. Oh, it's no, 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 no. Be careful. If you actually do not want to get pregnant, you need to be super careful now because your period is so erratic.
That's an important thing to mention for those who think perimenopause means that they cannot get pregnant.
No, no, no.
Yeah, it's just your body getting ready for post-menopause, right?
Well,
So,
yes.
yeah,
As you said, menopause is you have to be 1 year without getting your period.
right,
Once you've done that 1 year, then you're in postmenopause, and then you are not going to get pregnant. But
right.
until that time, you can, which is why women can get pregnant when they're in perimenopause.
Yes, there you go. All the more reason for younger people to really tune into the conversation around
Right.
menopause so that they understand what their bodies are going through, especially if they are delaying pregnancy, so that they can, have all of these resources, facts, and answers and information readily available for them so that they can navigate this as smoothly as they can.
No, no, I
Yeah.
think it's really important.
Absolutely important. Okay. So, what about supplements? We talked about nutrition as a way to, well, food, real food, as a way to support the body during menopause. Of course, it's a way to support the body, whether you're in menopause
Okay.
or not. But of course, we know there is like urgency when it comes to menopause because the body
Mhm.
changes and we have to adapt to suit. What is your stance on supplements
Okay.
and their role in managing menopause? Do you
Okay.
provide any recommendations on that topic? What do you advise your clients to do?
I always advise my clients to take a high quality multivitamin with folic acid. I myself take a prenatal vitamin, which people laugh about, but it has folic acid and it's a very high
Mm.
quality. And I think that that is important. I Supplements are not food. I think we should really be clear on that. And also, the nutrients that you get from supplements are not absorbed at the same rate as they would be from food. So I think I mean, it's pretty low, really, how much is absorbed. Supplements are also not regulated. And so you really need to know that you're getting a high quality supplement. If you're, if you're eating a well balanced diet, in theory, you should not need to take a supplement. However, none of us are that good. We always, so my feeling on supplements is supplements act as a safety net. So whenever you're not, eating exactly, getting all the nutrients you should get, that's a way to supplement. They're called supplements for a reason. They
Yeah.
supplement. I do feel that most women are lacking in calcium. I always, make sure that you have enough calcium. I think that it's important to have your vitamin D levels checked. Um, uh, Calcium, magnesium, and I think that it's really good when you go for your physical, your annual, to have a blood workup done and have your vitamin levels checked. I mean, you may be missing something you didn't even know. I mean, iodine is sometimes just lacking,
Right.
and that regulates your thyroid, which could be really
Mhm.
important. So, there is definitely a place for supplements.
Yeah, such great
But I,
information. Such great information because I think I take supplements because I know I don't get enough minerals and vitamins in my diet. So I do supplement. Sometimes I stop taking my supplements, but I always say to people, if you are embarking on a supplement regimen, get your blood work done, see your doctor, get your blood work done, know what you're deficient in, and then have a conversation about what you should and shouldn't
right,
take. And then also know if you are taking other types of medication that some supplements can interact negatively. So it's so important not to just dive in and go run and take all of the latest supplements
right,
for menopause, whatever they are. I mean, if you know your blood, you took your blood work and you know it's fine and you're where you're supposed to be, then yeah, if you have to take a multivitamin because you know you're
right.
missing some things, that's fine. But you've done the work with your doctor and you've had those conversations, right?
Right. I also think that I really strongly believe that you should have a high quality vitamin. And then
Absolutely.
the vitamins that you take, I really prefer them to be in capsule form
Right.
and not in pill form, because in capsule form they break down in your body with all your stomach acids.
Hmm.
Whereas if you're taking those huge horse pills because it's a multivitamin and it has so many vitamins in it, and you just swallow this one, I mean, it's just going out of you, it ends up in your toilet and that's it. So it's not doing you
Right.
any good. So you really need to be really conscientious about supplements, what you're taking, what you really need to take, and as you said, and I think to your point, which is a very good, well made, is that you need to know if there's any interaction between your supplements and whatever medications you may be on.
Yeah, because again, it's all for optimizing wellness.
Hmm.
And yeah, diving into something without knowing what the repercussions are is certainly not a way to optimize wellness. It can
No,
actually cause the reverse. Yeah, you're right. So yeah.
right.
Okay, so how can one customize nutrition plans to address the unique needs and symptoms associated with menopause?
Okay. So I think meal plans should always be customized
Mm,
for a lot of reasons. First of all, everyone's unique, right? One size does not fit all.
right.
There are foods that you're going to need based on whatever you're going through, and foods that you like and don't like. That should also be taken into consideration. What kind of diet you're on,
Mm-hmm.
and by that I mean, are you a vegan, a vegetarian, whatever. What are you going to eat? Because for myself or anyone else to give you a meal plan that is something that you're never going to eat, what's the
Right.
point?
Right.
You want this to be supportive. And I usually, when I do meal plans, we have a little conversation before about what it is and what you're looking for. We work it out, and then I go, well, here it is. And they'll go, oh, I really hate broccoli. I'm like, okay, let's substitute that.
Right.
But, it has to be a customized meal plan. Otherwise, I mean, I'm sure people work on ones that aren't, but I think optimally, if you are going to have a meal plan, it should be customized.
Got it. So you can either do it yourself or you can do it with someone like yourself, a nutritionist, a health and wellness coach, someone who can guide you because they've got all of the information at hand to make it easier for you, correct?
Correct. I mean, if I'm making one, I can also check the nutrient value of every meal, which is not
Mm,
something that I'm going to give to you because I don't want you obsessing about it. I
right.
have that, I know what it is. You don't need to know.
Right.
You just need to eat it. But it's something that's important.
Got it.
If
Yes.
I know that you're just lacking in whatever, I'm going to make sure that your meal plan
Mm.
has more of that than maybe another meal plan would.
Yeah, I love that, which is only going to make eating much more desirable, especially when you know that what you're putting into your mouth is going to help
Oh,
support your health and wellness, will help support your body to combat those unpleasant menopausal symptoms, right? Support
right.
your health, your heart health, support your brain health, support your bone health. Yeah. One thing I love that I read on your website, and I'm going to quote it to you, and then you're just going to tell me a little bit about it.
Okay.
There are too many diets, too much judgment, and too much hype.
Well, I think that people generally want a quick fix. And there are so many diets that are promoted. And some of them are promoted by, professionals like doctors that will
Mhm.
say, oh, this is this. But it's usually because it worked for them. That does not mean it's going to work for you. And I also think there is a place for a diet. But I think that all of this hype and all of these diets and what diet are you on? And I'm doing keto and it just becomes this noise. It's
Right.
noise because you really want to know what's good for you. And then I think, I don't know if we talked about this before or not, but there's also always the marketing in it. It's like the food marketing. I mean, marketing is a big
Yes.
business, and that's part of the hype, right? Let's get us all jazzed up about, ooh, fat is bad or sugar's not that bad because this doesn't have sugar. Oh, we're going to use xylitol because it's like no, it's all sugar and it has no nutrient value. Should you never eat sugar? No, you can eat sugar sometimes. So I think that we need to just get back to basics.
Yeah.
Get back to real food, get back to enjoying our food. Food should be pleasurable. You should be like, wow, this is a great meal. I mean, I remember meals that I've had that were great meals that I had like 20 years ago. They were great meals. I want people to have that experience.
I love it, especially during menopause, because this is the time when people think, oh my God, food is the enemy. And
No,
it's not.
it's
It's the
not. And
food that's going to fuel us, right?
right. And it just is a choice of foods, right?
Right,
What food
right.
is going to work for you?
And I think that's so important for people to understand. It is the choice of foods, and it's the 80-20, and it's the mindset, and
Right.
it's the community that's going to kind of get you through. So, for those who are going through this alone, who are suffering through this alone, I cannot encourage you enough to lean into people like Laura. I'll share her website a little later. Lean into communities that are talking about menopause and find what works for you. Yeah.
I think it's really important.
It's so important. I've learned that lesson. I've learned the importance of community to thrive through whatever changes I'm going through my life. It just cannot be done effectively and efficiently and seamlessly alone. It's
It's
hard.
so hard. It's hard. It's hard to do
It's
it all
very
by
hard.
yourself.
Yeah. Okay, so I ask a variation of a what if you were question to all my guests. So yours is,
Okay.
if you were a scientist charged with creating an invention to make the menopause experience more manageable, what would that be and why?
Ooh, what a great question. Okay. So I think that we need something that will manage our symptoms. So I would invent a small sensor, maybe small enough to be like a pendant necklace, right? And before you use it, it would scan your body to see what your numbers and everything are, and then you would wear it. And all of a sudden, if you have a hot flash, it would sense that, and it would immediately cool you down. If it found that all of a sudden you're wearing it and it senses that your body is, you've got a little bit of, you're getting more depressed, it'll be like, oh, okay, she needs more oxytocin. And it would just regulate your body like instantly. And then you would just walk through life with your little pendant and no one would be the wiser. You'd feel great.
I want that pendant.
I know.
So when I'm having an anxiety moment, it's
I
going to be
know.
like, oop, off the
Yeah.
parasympathetic you go, right?
Yeah, exactly. Cortisol levels drop, it just is like, okay.
I love that. I love that. You know what? And that's not far fetched at all
No.
because we have all of these devices
Right.
that are tuning into our bodies and literally reading our numbers, as you said, and giving recommendations. So, that I'm sure is going to be something for the future if someone's not already working on it. And I would love to be a part of that. Probably my menopause symptoms will be long gone, but my
Okay.
daughters, or maybe if I have granddaughters, will benefit
Yeah,
from it.
it would be great.
I love that. That was fun. Laura, one more thing I want to ask you. What
Sure.
are three self care rituals that you practice every day or regularly to support your well being now that you are in postmenopause?
I journal every morning. I do yoga 5 days a week at least. That gets me through almost anything.
I love
And
it.
then I drink a glass of hot water with lemon juice and fresh squeezed ginger every morning.
Mmm, yummy. So simple, but I
Yep.
bet so effective.
So great.
Ah, thank you. Laura, thank you so much. I mean, this was just great. We can talk forever. We're almost an hour already, and it just went by so fast. So, thank you so much for sharing. Before you go, share with the audience how they can find you and how they can stay connected with you.
Okay. You can always find me on my website, which is lauralacey.com. That's LAURA LACEY.com. There is I have a newsletter that I publish every Friday. It's called Friday Musings. It has menopause tips. I always include a recipe. And it's a good way to stay in touch with me. If you have questions, you can always, respond to my newsletter. So I would say go to my website, sign up for my newsletter, and let's stay in touch.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Do follow Laura. She's on social media. She's on the internet at lauralacey.com. She's on Instagram at Laura Lacey. She is
Wellness.
a wealth of information and knowledge, as you heard. And she definitely should be in your resource toolkit, your menopausal, perimenopausal, postmenopausal, pregnancy toolkit so that you can be supported because I absolutely love the work that she's doing. And I am sure you're going to love it too once you follow her. So thank you, Laura, again, so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on to the Pause Pod and sharing all of this wealth of information. I know I've learned a lot. I'm sure our audience learned a lot as well. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. It was great being here. Be well.
Listeners, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. Until next time, let's perimenopause and prosper.